Hello again, everybody. What's going on? My name is Chris Adams.
And I'm Travis.
That is Travis. He's not lying to you. I'm not going to tell you what his last name is because, it's Rollins. Shh.
What?
Host and co-host of Retro Life for You, as it states, your number one podcast for all things retro.
Welcome, everybody, to today's episode.
That being said, today is going to be what we like to refer to as a Bring Out Our Inner Kid episode. In the next few minutes, we're going to be going over toys that are from the movies and television. Now, some of these toys were out first, which spawned off a cartoon or a movie possibly or something like that. And some of these just came after the movie or TV show got popular and they wanted to put it toward the kids and make as much money as they could off of it.
Absolutely.
In my background behind my picture, for those of you watching YouTube, you can see some of the stuff on there. And I had some of these things. I had the Thunderhawk vehicle right there, as you see to the right of my head there for a mask. Behind me to my right here, you can't really make it up very well. And if I move, it messes up my green screen. But it's Optimus Prime. And above him is Trailblazer. I had Optimus Prime. I did not have a Sorceress figure or a Battle Cat figure, as you see, but the G.I. Joe Ferret, I believe I had it. And I had a Skeletor and a He-Man, and those are both off. I get so backwards on here, man. I'm always wanting to do the other one.
It's hard, ain't it?
Right down there.
Ow.
So,
that's Skeletor working against you. I'll get you, Chris Adams.
I know, man. He's out for me. I'm telling you. But I did have quite a few He-Man figures, so
yeah.
I wasn't big on the He-Man vehicles. I didn't have any of those really, but it had the figures, all kinds of figures. G.I. Joe was my favorite thing, though.
Heck
back in the day.
He-Man was definitely mine. I am not on a green screen. That is a real Castle Grayskull sitting right there. I got a bunch of stuff. Luckily for me, my mom was a little bit of a pack rat, and she kept all kind of stuff from when I was a kid. So I've still got all my He-Man toys, which went on to include some of the She-Ra toys with Hordak and She-Ra, and some dude all covered in fur that was like a knockoff Beast Man. And I think I got about 8 She-Ra action figures, and the G.I. Joe was the one that I missed out on. I never got the G.I. Joe. So I wanted it, but I never got a hold of it because, I got
one
some
of these
Transformers.
days, we're going to get Travis to go through and just lay out tables and tables of stuff and just take his camera down there and go, now, as you will see, I have this right here. I have this right here. And look at what I got that Chris don't. That's what he'll do, too. He'll throw that in there for real. He will.
Yep. Hey, Chris, look at what I got. I got a new Mortal Kombat 11 Spawn. Check that out. I go on my shelf. And I
don't care about that mess.
Right.
But back to our toy stuff and everything. We have no real direction as far as any order we're going to go in here. But we just want to touch on some of the things, and I want to start with TV shows, Travis, and then we're going to get into the cartoons for TV, obviously. But when you think of toys, a lot of people don't really understand and realize that some of the TV shows from back in the day had a toy line that came out for collectibles, and I didn't realize some of these things until just this last year or two. But if you were a fan of the old Magnum PI show, Tom Selleck driving the red Ferrari, you could get the red Ferrari with a Magnum figure standing beside it as a collectible. There was the van that was it TC or Rick drove? I don't think it's TC's van.
TC, I thought it's called TC's van. Like if you were to buy it.
It may be, I don't know, but I mean, he had a van and a helicopter. Now, I don't know if the helicopter was put out as a toy or not. I have seen people make customs, of the helicopter out of models and just bought decals for them.
Well, I had a Hot Wheels A-Team van for sure.
Well, the A-Team van gets put out quite a few times on Hot Wheels. I mean, they don't do it every year. They don't do it every year. But even the A-Team back in the day, I remember when I was younger, I wanted the A-Team figures so bad because I loved the TV show. they had a fairly good sized A-Team van that the 6-inch A-Team figures could stand beside. I don't know if they actually fit in the van and sat in the van or not. I don't remember that. But they each come equipped with a weapon of sorts, like a rifle, a pistol, a walkie-talkie. And in Murdoch's case, Murdoch had a backpack and a propelling line that he could come back down with and everything.
Okay.
Then you had Mr. T, of course, B.A. Baracus.
Oh, yeah.
And Mr. T was a popular selling point when it come to toys for the A-Team and everything. The A-Team also had a small, I want to say 4-episode comic book that came out. And I had all 4 episodes at one point on the comic book when I was younger. I wasn't a huge comic book collector. Travis is, between me and Travis would know 1,000 times more than I would about comic books. But I had like the G.I. Joes 1 through 36 or 38, I think 38. And I had all 4 of the A-Team episodes. And I had the various, X-Men here and there, Uncanny X-Men, just a little bit of that. But Simon and Simon, just a simple investigator show, even had a thing where you could get the vehicles from the show. And later on, Hot Wheels would, once again, put that out to make some money off of, vehicles from the TV shows. You had Hot Wheel vehicles, Travis, from Starsky and Hutch, the A-Team, the Knight Rider car, the
Fall Guy
truck. Yes, yeah. I mean, and we had a show in the past that would, these iconic cars we're talking about.
Yeah, that'd be for y'all. Those of y'all that have seen a few of our episodes. That'd be the Fall Guy F750 Sierra Cummins Turbo Ford pickup dump truck.
Ranger. And we're saying this so we can impress somebody that we know, because right now he's having strokes about 3 seconds apart when hearing all that.
Yeah.
But
my spaghetti, my ADD brain went crazy. We were talking about the truck, and it's a GMC, GMC Sierra.
It's just a GMC for sure.
And I started talking about how tough these square body Fords were back in the 80s, and they're like, what are you talking about? And I was like,
we're not talking about those. We're talking about those. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? And then, I mean, Dukes of Hazzard, man. TV shows. Speaking of TV shows,
lots of doggone, yeah.
Every young boy out there wanted a General Lee.
Yeah.
To play with, 68, was it 68 or 69 Dodge Charger? 68, wasn't it?
I believe so.
Every kid wanted that.
I believe it was both. I believe they changed out. I believe it was both. Or it was 2 different year cars.
It was at one point, but they're very similar in appearance.
Yeah. That's like a 68 and a 68 and a 67, a 67, 68, and 69 C10 pickup truck. The only difference in them are the reflectors inside of the fender wells. Right. It's the only difference.
I mean, I don't know what all TV shows you watched. I know we're a good at least 10 years apart in age at the very least. I know.
Right. Yeah.
I think we're about 12 or 13 years apart, actually. But that being said, when I was young, I was born in 73. So around 78, 79, I had some toys from TV shows based off Battlestar Galactica, based off Lost in Space. We had Buck Rogers of the 25th Century.
And
then you get on into the 80s and you start getting some things. There were some wrestlers that came out. They had figures for, they were Remco wrestlers, and they were based off of an organization called AWA, the American Wrestling Association. So we had things like Ric Flair versus Rick Martel in a twin pack. You had a twin pack of a tag team with Kurt Hennig and Greg Gagne, the Fabulous One, Steve Curran and Stan Lane. You had the Road Warriors, Hawk and Animal. You had Larry Zbyszko, and I want to say it was Zbyszko and Bockwinkel, but I'm not sure. Nick Bockwinkel. Then you had Jimmy Garvin and Steve Regal, and then they put out Ray Phillips' favorite toys, the Fabulous Freebirds.
Yeah, those are definitely going to be his favorite.
He'd pick those things up and be like, Michael Hayes. Hayes.
Oh, Michael Hayes.
Oh, Terry Gordy.
The chest hair feels real.
Oh my gosh. If you people only knew Ray Phillips. That's our buddy
That's
there.
right.
That's our
Yes,
buddy
sir.
there.
That's
I'm
my
not gonna
guy.
talk. I'm not gonna talk about his recent theatrics. We ain't gonna talk about that because I ain't about chasing people away from the show. So
Right,
back to the toys. Back to
Yeah.
the toys.
Back to the toys.
Back to the toys.
Speaking of, talking about how a lot of people don't realize too how many, there was a lot of cartoons that were made to sell toys. Like nearly every cartoon that we had in the 80s into the early 90s were made to sell toys. Like the toy came first and then the cartoon was meant to sell them. You had Jim and the holograms. You had He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. You had Transformers. You had Sky. I said the name a while ago. What was it? We had Hot Wheels, Pound Puppies, Mighty Max and Polly Pocket. Both had little cartoons for a little while.
Sky Rangers or something like that.
Yeah, Sky Commanders. That's it. Sky Commanders. Teddy Ruxpin, which Teddy Ruxpin had been out. Teddy Ruxpin was huge before the cartoon came out. So that one may be a little obvious, but there was so many, man. G.I. Joe, the real American hero. You know what I mean? Like the G.I. Joe has been around since the 60s.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. There's already been G.I. Joe's lines of G.I. Joe out, but G.I. Joe evolved over the years to where it wasn't just these 12-inch figures. Like one was a medic, one was a grunt, one was a sailor, one was an underwater diver. They went from that to being people with personalities and nicknames and smaller size and stature with vehicles. And they went from that and said, well, the kids will see this, but what will they make of it? We got to give it an identity. So they come up with a cartoon for it. And you come up with names like, Duke and Flint and Scarlet and Lady J and
Nighthawk, Snake Eyes. Yeah, Cobra Commander.
Destro. Exactly. Zartan. Yeah. I mean, all these things over the years. And I, for one, well, I always made sure I bought figures. I love getting the action figures. When it comes Christmas time or birthday, that's when you went for the big items, right?
Right.
I sure could go for a G.I. Joe Jeep for my birthday this year, and the Jeep would be it came with rock and roll as one of the as the driver, the character rock and roll. I had the Jeep. I had the motorcycle with the sidecar. I had the big transport vehicle that you could set the actual figures down in the back of it.
Just to interject for a second, too, people, I want y'all to know, back in the 80s, neither of our parents were rich or well off.
Oh, no.
Probably not even upper middle class. Barely middle class. You know what? And when I was a little kid, we weren't even there. We was taking baths in a river poor. And I still had toys. My parents could still afford to feed me. They could still afford to clothe me and still afford to actually buy me toys and take me places. Right. Unlike today.
I mean, I was getting...
These things didn't cost the fortune that they cost now.
I think the G.I. Joes were $4.95 a piece for me. And I would be getting, an allowance throughout the week for doing the things that that your mom or dad would have you to set up, take out the trash, clean your room, pick up your dirty laundry, and along the ways of doing the chores and earning money, you're learning how to take care of yourself and take care of the place around you and everything as well. And becomes habit to you. You're getting rewarded for it. And I would buy a figure. Sometimes I'd have the money for two figures if I did extra work or something. Like I said, the vehicles usually got those for Christmas or birthdays or something. Something that you didn't save it for, because if I was saving up for $20 to buy, say, the plane. I always wanted the G.I. Joe plane and the Cobra Rattler. I didn't have either one of those. But those were the expensive vehicles. And they were more expensive than like the Jeep and the motorcycle. And the biggest toy I had, once again, was the one that transported all of them when you set them in the back end of it and everything. I didn't have the bridge layer. I didn't have the USS. The toy of all toys for kids back then for G.I. Joe. And it is the aircraft carrier. It's if you just have the box today, then you're sitting on gold, because people will pay you a good bit of money just for that box to put on display. If you have the actual carrier itself, oh my God, I can't begin to tell you. Somebody will pay you a butt ton of money to take that off your hands and display it somewhere.
Guaranteed.
We are a strange breed of people. Man, and it's mainly guys that do it. There are some women who do it too. Collect things from their childhood and everybody's toys and everything. But they do put re-releases out of some things right now. Like they're re-releasing some of the G1 Transformers. So you can't really call it G1 because it's not the Generation 1 that came out. It's just like a mock look of them, and they're a little bit different, and they may transform a little bit differently. But a lot of people want the original status of what it was, and the look and the feel of it, and they'll pay money for it.
Absolutely,
and a lot of great collections out there to see. And a lot of them worth a lot of money these days. The old He-Man stuff intact is a fairly good value to him. Travis can attest to that with his Snake Mountain and Castle Grayskull and some of his figures.
Yep, I got the horses, and I mean, you name it, pretty much. So there's very, very few things I don't have. At one point in time, the only two I was missing 2 action figures, and that was actually King Grandor and Queen Marlena, and that was because as a kid, I was like, why do I want King Grandor? They ain't nobody. So, but yeah, I mean, a lot of the vehicles and stuff like that, and it had the Transformers. I don't have any G1s because they're, again, even back then the G1s were a little expensive. So that's one of the reasons. That's one of the reasons I didn't have the GI Joes, because they were a little more expensive than the He-Man and stuff.
GI Joes, well, no, actually, figure wise, He-Man and GI Joe were kind of neck and neck with price.
Were they? Because I remember He-Man being about $2.50, $3 a piece when I was a kid.
Well, maybe that's what the GI Joes were too. Then I was thinking closer to $5, but they were about the same price, so that's why I had GI Joes and He-Man. I would alternate what I get, and sometimes I'd buy Transformers. Now I had pretty much all the mini bots there was at one point. There was Bumblebee and Cliff Jumper and Brawn and Beachcomber and Periscope, I think he was called. Quite a few of them out there, and then I had some of the larger ones. The biggest one I got for Christmas one year, and I was tickled to death over it. It was the city Metroplex. It went from a city to a to a big robot.
Heck yeah!
I always wanted the Decepticons' largest one they had, which was Shockwave. It was a gun that would transform and everything, just like Megatron did, but it was more believable.
Right.
On the transformation. Next to that, I had Optimus Prime, and Optimus Prime today, if you have it in the box still, it hadn't been opened. Lots of money.
Yeah,
lots of money. Even out of the box, in good shape.
Oh yeah, that's like I had the Predacons that I had at one point in time about 5.5, 6 years ago. And my mother called me. She's like, "Do you realize? I just read an article, on the phone or whatever. Those robots you got, like, I could swear that you had these," and sent me a picture. And I'm like, "Yeah, I got them right now. I can take pictures of them and show them to you." She's like, "Them things worth $3,000. I said, "Dude, what?" $3,000. But at that point in time, that was the rarest, most sought after piece of the collection that people were looking for, were my Predacons. And it was sea creatures that, can kind of like Constructicons, and it would come together. So all of your little Transformers that were like this big came together and built one. And then the Predacons, there was a big snapping turtle that went in the middle. He was like this big around, so he unfolded and became about that tall. And then they all plugged into him. And by the time you were done, that son of a gun, if I was to hold him up right now, he'd be as big as my torso almost. And within about 2 years, the price on that had dropped down to about 800, 600, and now if you look it up, it's probably, you can find them thrown around for about 300. But that's what happens too. It goes up and down. Everything gets real scarce, and then people are like, "Okay, well, I'll pay this for it, and I'll pay this for it." And then the other people go like, "What? That's worth what? Man, I got 7 of those in my closet, man." Like, then all of a sudden the price falls out again. So,
I tell you one toy. Well, actually, we'll hold off on that just for a little bit, because that refers to movies. But talking about television cartoons still, I think you brought it up earlier. Thundercats. There was Thundercats.
Yeah.
They were very popular when they came out. The cartoon was popular. The toys were popular. And one that I did not see many toys of at the time, but I see people with them in their collection now was Brave Star. And I watched the
Yep.
cartoon Brave Star.
I never saw a Brave Star toy when I was a kid. I'd have begged
I
for it.
didn't either. I didn't either. I never saw it. Now I got a guy on my on our Instagram here. Um, and dude, I wish I could think of your name. I'm gonna look his name and give him a shout out on here. He's got quite a few good toys and everything, man.
Right.
And he came up with some Brave Star stuff, and I was like, that is cool. I said, tell me that is that like a replica or something? Is it a custom build or some kind? He said, no, dude, that's the real deal right there. That actually came out, and he's had it the whole time. But his name is, I just had him, Cobra.x666.
Heck yeah. Cobra Commander Devil. Evil Cobra Commander.
Toys for big boys, he said. That's it. And his actual picture, when you look at it, is Cobretti from the movie Cobra.
Oh,
so,
okay.
But Cobra.x666. He's got a lot of great toys and stuff he'll feature on there. Somebody else, since we're doing this on Instagram, that has a large toy collection that he has quite a few frequent videos about and everything. His name is Timmy, back to the 1980s, and at the end of it, it's a Z, not an S. So BACKTOTHE 1980 Z, back to the 1980s. Definitely will enjoy it. If you're a big toy fan, you'll enjoy his collection. It's huge.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you're going to be a toy collector these days, you better either have a good job or no kids. Because
you ain't lying.
Now, boy, them things.
You ain't lying.
Woo.
The kids for two reasons. One, you got to afford to take care of the kids for one. And two, your kids don't want to play with the toy you don't want to play with.
Exactly. That's like my son asking me if we could pull out some of my old comics and read them. I'm like, buddy, I'd really rather you just look this particular issue up online. I'm sure we can find it and just maybe leave it in the bag here.
But anyway, from TV, let's just jump to the movies for a little bit because we got a lot of both of them we can go over.
Oh yeah, man, aliens and so. Oh
yeah,
you name it, and there's probably a toy from it.
One of the most popular toys I was going to mention earlier when it comes to movie toys that had a large value and still carry a large value today is the Star Wars line.
Oh God, yeah.
I mean, Star Wars toys were big, and you were talking ones that take big money for the Transformers. Back in the day, I can remember, well, not when it came out, but in say the 90s and 2000s, early 2000s. I remember Boba Fett, the original Boba Fett, being well sought after, and if you could get a Boba Fett on the blister pack still, then you were sitting on a good bit of money. But there were some re-releases of Boba Fett that was not the original. You can tell the original by the packaging, what was on the back of the package and stuff like that. And, that would tell you if it was. And of course, it has the copyright data when the new one was re-released and everything. So, but everything from X-Wing fighters to TIE fighters to the Millennium Falcon, every kid wanted the big Millennium Falcon. I never had it, but I wanted it.
Right. Then what was that's funny that you brought that up because what I was about to say too, there was a Millennium Falcon case. It was like about like that, and it opened up and it held the entire series of at the time that entire run of the figurines.
And I didn't have
that complete. If you had that thing with a complete set, it didn't matter if it's blister pack or not. If they, you know what I mean, like you had that, and then you had the full of the actual figurines where they went in it. Oh my goodness! Like I remember back in the 90s, even that was worth a pile of money.
Now the one I did have that held figures, it was a Darth Vader case. It was his head down to his shoulders, basically just below his shoulders, and you would pop the clips off both sides there and on top of the head and open it up, and it would, you had room for I forget how many figures it was. There's a lot of figures it held though. and you could transport them around to your friend's house. And this one, you go to your friends to play with toys and everything. You take yours with you. Take it back. They also released little die-cast versions of them back in the day as well. I don't know if they were actual Hot Wheel die-cast or if they were just die-cast releases from Star Wars.
Right.
But X-Wing fighters and Millennium Falcon and TIE fighters and such, and the Y-Wing fighters that were about, I'd say, a good 4 inches long, maybe 5 inches long, and they were metal.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember those being a fun thing to run around. Kids running around the playground in school brought their Millennium Falcons and their TIE fighters and such, and their X-Wing fighters, and you get the TIE fighters chasing the X-Wing fighters. They hold them up like this and run through the playground with them.
Yeah.
While some of us were over there on a big dirt/clay hill with your cars that you were running up the hill and watching them come back down.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you had like those stomper trucks or the beast trucks with the claws coming out of the tires, climbing all the way up the hill like that.
Right.
Traction. I mean, all these different things. And then you look over at the girls, and the girls are there showing off their Cabbage Patch doll they got this year that they would bring in and carry around with them, or the new Barbie doll that they had. And Barbie at that point in time, there wasn't something like where they were releasing like the Ricky Ricardo and Lucy Barbie collection, or the
right.
There's no Britney Spears Barbie, no NSYNC Barbie collection or anything like that.
They had the My Little Pony that changed colors or revealed stars when they got wet.
Right. Right. So these are the kind of things that I would see on the playground during that time frame.
Right.
Based off of TV and movies and such. Some of the TV shows, some of the movies that came out, Ghostbusters. When Ghostbusters came out, I think every kid I knew wanted one of the proton pack sets because it had a ghost trap with it. You used to ghost trap out, and your proton pack and the gun were making noise and had lights and everything on it. The pack that catches the ghost with the top, the doors would flap open.
Yeah, the trap.
And some light would come out of it. And when you released it, the light would disappear like you sucked the ghost back down into it. That's what it's supposed to represent,
Yeah.
Tons and tons and tons of things. But the mask vehicles, Travis, that was one of them also that came out as a toy first and made its way to a cartoon second, right?
Yep, absolutely. Yep. The mask too. The mask was another one that I didn't have a whole lot of. For some reason, I don't know if it was because of my age, because we talked about before about our age gap, and I was born in 1980. And sometimes when I look back on the time frame, I think that maybe mask was it may have possibly been just a little over my head. Not that I didn't get it; it was over my head, in that it was boring to me compared to some of the other stuff that was going on. It was it was an older age group appropriate, I think, than what I was at that particular time, because I wasn't interested in the cars and the technical stuff. Like, I wasn't going with Johnny Quest yet and things like that. So I feel like that's the only reason I really didn't get into masks so much, because I was into more of the fantastical, the He-Mans and the Transformers, GoBots, and stuff like that. The Street Sharks, and Street Sharks was a little later though.
Right, they were, but those were the fun toys we wanted because of what they represented. They represented the cartoon that we love, the action adventure cartoon, Silverhawks, Voltron, the 2 different Voltrons, the 5 lion set and the 3 air, land, and sea car sets.
Right. And the Dino Riders. We're leaving the Dino Riders out. The Dino Riders were awesome too, because you got your figurine, you got your dinosaur, you got all this gear and armor and weapons that'll clip to your dinosaurs, and I think the Dino Riders was pretty cool too.
And then if you look further back, and of course in my age group, further back, you had cartoons of Thundar the Barbarian that had figures out. The
Thundar,
the Super Friends versus, it was the Hall of Justice versus the Legion of Doom. It was Challenge of the Super Friends. So you would see little toy versions and figures of like Firestorm and Martian Manhunter and Apache Chief and El Dorado and Flash and Green Lantern. It wasn't just Batman, Robin, Superman, and Wonder Woman, and Aquaman. You had like the Wonder Twins for action figures.
Heck yeah.
Hanna-Barbera is who put the cartoon out, and Hanna-Barbera would put out figures for their lesser cartoons as well that were well known to
Yeah.
kids, but they weren't action adventure. But a lot of kids out there had the Fred Flintstone mobile, and
Yep.
everybody knew what it meant to say that you had to pull a Fred Flintstone to get your bike to go on or something because you're using your feet to go or to stop.
Right.
But Hanna-Barbera, Travis, Jetsons,
Oh
uh,
Lord, yeah.
the Flintstones,
Jetsons, the Flintstones, Scooby
Scooby
Doo,
Doo. Yeah.
doggone Heathcliff. There was Heathcliff toys, Garfield, and man, oh my gosh, Grape Ape, Hong Kong Phooey,
Yeah.
the Hanna Barbera present. What was the Hanna? It was the race. The Hanna Barbera presents the something.
The Laugh Olympics.
The Laugh Olympics. Yeah.
Yes. You had the Scooby Doobies.
Yeah.
The Yogi Yahooies.
Yeah.
There was the Dastardlies, I think they were called or something. Or
Muttley and Dastardly Dan.
No, Muttley and Dick Dastardly was a part of the team, but they were called something else though. I forget what they were called. Anyway, you had toys from these things. I mean, it's little things that you wouldn't think that would be put out, but there was a toy line for it. And if you can find it, they're very collectible to a lot of people today because it represents their childhood, and they would display that on a shelf and be like, I remember Thundar the Barbarian with his sorceress Ariel and Ukla the Mock and his fabulous sword.
And we're forgetting, we're leaving out a big one too, and that is Disney. There was a lot of Disney going on too. Throughout the years.
It wasn't just the movies.
Yeah, there was a lot of Disney out there. The Goofy stuff. I was a big Goofy fan. Looney Tunes too, man. Oh my gosh, you talk about some toys with Taz. Man, I had Taz everything. I had Taz shoes and doggone shirts and had a wall lamp that was like a 3D bubble wall lamp you could turn on and off with Taz on it. But we had Taz and Goofy were always my favorite ones back then. Good Lord, you start talking about that stuff. You had all of it. So you had your regulars from the little shows, and all you had Goofy and Mickey and Pluto and all of them, and then you had the doggone movies coming out. You had all that stuff, and then it's funny to me too how we even had retro. Like retro has been a life thing. It's been a kind of a collectors and lifestyle type thing for years and years, because I can remember Felix the Cat and Little Lulu and stuff like this being collector's items and having little figurines and stuff like that were worth tons and tons of money even back when I was a kid. Yeah. But it's kind of trailed off now because you don't know who those characters are unless you're ingrained in the culture and you discover them, or you, like myself, that's how I got to know them with little Audrey and all these things, was being at my grandmother's house and having all that stuff on tape and going back and watching it.
And some of these things you may have had in form of something that was a collectible, like a glass or a cup.
Yeah, absolutely.
Had the print of the cartoon on there. Yeah. If I hadn't have packed everything up already, I would show you which I've showed yourself personally, Travis, before here. But I mean, I've got like some Looney Tune glasses from 1973. I'm like, I was born in 1973. I'll take those.
I'll take them. Heck yeah.
Got my birth year on there. And they were some pretty wanted stuff. Then you went from those to getting things at places like Burger King and McDonald's. You had like Smurf glasses, Alvin and the Chipmunk collectible glasses, anything that was a Saturday morning cartoon. They would throw in there at one point.
I was about to say, hold on just a second. I'm not going to go get them, but if I could turn the camera around, I've got a display case over here with tons of those very things in it.
Yeah.
But come out of there. What in the world? Now I'm showing off my mess behind my chair. But yeah, there's Gobo from Fraggle Rock, one of the little toys out of there.
Yeah.
And then or that's not Gobo. Gobo wears a hat. Anyway, and then there's another toy that we forget about. Pez, man.
Pez dispensers. Now, Pez dispensers were a very collectible thing.
Yeah.
only because you could reload it with candy and take your candy around with you. You were cool depending on what Pez dispenser you had.
Oh yeah,
Like in your case right there, Star Wars, Boba Fett.
boba.
You may have had a Darth Vader helmet on there. You may have had a Luke
Yeah,
Skywalker head from his X-wing fighter.
no doubt.
I mean,
C-3PO.
you could have had a Bugs Bunny, a Looney Tunes, and a Bugs Bunny, a Daffy the Duck, Yosemite
Pez.
Sam.
Pez is a whole nother culture on its own. Like,
There are there are people out there who got collections of all that they can get their hands on, individual different heads on there that they don't have, and it's considered, a very well, I don't say very well revered, but I mean very well sought after collection by a lot of
oh
different people.
Lord, yeah. Pez is
Those,
huge. Pez dispensers are huge, huge, huge. And some
right,
of these Pez, some of them Pez dispensers will get you paid too.
yeah.
Some Pez dispensers are very, very collectible.
Oh, it's ridiculous. Some of the things, the price that some of them get.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really understand
And
it,
not
but
only that, too, going back to the toys too. There were things that happened with the toys that made other toys. So I just happened to think too. We were talking about the Cabbage Patch Kids, and then I said something about the Garbage Pail Kids. So the Garbage Pail Kids were like baseball cards and stickers that
right.
were basically parodies and spoofs of the Cabbage Patch Kids. So it's like it spawned other things just from this toy or this TV show or whatever, and we see
I
the
mean,
popularity. We're going to cash in on that and do this.
yeah. I mean,
It's wild,
if we were talking collectibles, not just toys but collectibles,
right?
Garbage Pail Kids and baseball, football, basketball cards would definitely be in the mix and everything.
Mm-hmm.
A toy that took a life of its own, that took it off into a life of its own, into a cartoon series. No, I'll take it back. Well, yeah, no, the toy was already out, and they made a cartoon series. Now, the cartoon series wasn't based on the actual toy per se to push the toy, because the toy was already popular with a lot of kids,
Mm-hmm.
and that was the Rubik's cube.
Okay,
Um,
yeah.
Getting how many sides can you get? For you just lose to it. But
Mm-hmm.
there was a cartoon called Rubik the Amazing Cube,
Mm-hmm.
and every time you got everything in order, the robot part of the cube, whatever, would come out, and I guess you would get. I don't know if it was a wish you'd get for it or something
It
else.
seems like it was. Yeah, it seems like it was because that's like it sound like Dragon Balls almost. You collect them all and get yourself a wish. But there
Yeah,
was so many too, man. What's the name of the Popples? We had the Popples. Remember the little stuffed animals that would turn inside their own belly and turn into a little ball?
yeah.
And you play with the ball, and then you turn around and whoop, Popples,
I
pop
know.
them out.
What a popples or poppables?
No, they were Popples. Popples. Popples.
Okay.
I still got 4 or 5 of them floating around here somewhere. Alf. Alf was dude. I had Alf hand puppets that
Yeah.
were like furry that you could play with. I had Alf dolls and Alf figurines. Alf even like it was all kind of stuff. Seems like too. Yeah, I'm pretty positive. Didn't the thing? So all right. So remember the girls had the easy bake oven. And
Yes.
for so long, the girls had the easy bake oven. And then I could be mistaken this, but I remember after the easy bake oven, the boys got creepy crawlers. Do you remember creepy crawlers, man?
Remember, were those the things you throw against the wall and they would just start making their way down the
Yeah,
wall?
yes, exactly. But you could make
Yeah.
them. So they
Yeah.
gave you all the powder and stuff, and you pour it up in your little mold and all, and then yeah, and
Yeah.
creepy crawlers got a cartoon there for a little bit, very very little bit, but yeah, creepy crawlers had a cartoon even. So that would be like making a cartoon for the Easy Bake Oven or something.
Yeah. Well, then there was Light Brights.
Yeah, I still got. I can walk around the corner right now and show you an original Light Bright from 1980, whatever. Still in the box, buddy. Still in the box. I just found it the other day. Here, hang on. Let me grab 2 or 3 things.
Oh, grab it.
You keep talking.
I tell you, you grab 2 or 3 things. Yeah, the light brights were pretty cool. You could get different. I don't want to call them. Well, yeah, they're pictures, and they have an order in which on the screen would be. So, if you had if it's supposed to be red, it'd be R for red, a B for blue, a Y for yellow, a G for green, W for white, whatever the case may be, and it would have a different outline. You could have an outline of a boat, a car, there was a plane, there was a little farmyard look with the green grass and a red barn or something, and things, all different kinds of pictures you could put on a light bright. You could order extra kits of different things that you haven't done before that were new. And each year, I think they'd release new sub kits and everything to order to keep yourself going with fun for the light bright. On top of the light bright being on the creative side, you got stuff like etch a sketches and like you mentioned what the girls had and everything with the easy bake ovens that made actual stuff you could eat in them. It just got the girls interested in baking, basically, is what it come down to, and try to hold their interest in that. Um, Other toys, that we had, I'll say informational, but it's board games for one. You can't forget a good board game. It's not based off any cartoon or movie, but you always love certain games like Sorry, Monopoly, Connect Four, Bingo is an old game will never go away, and fun to play. But I can't wait to see what Travis comes up with here. I mean, he's got all kinds of great things tucked away in a little hidey hole he's got over there. And here he comes back now with some things. Travis?
Yeah, I'm back.
Check this out, Travis. What we're going to do here is we are going to put you on the big screen, okay?
So what now?
We're going to put you on the big screen for a minute, man, to display your stuff.
Yeah, let's do that.
All right, so hold on here.
So I just went and grabbed a couple little things. Just this was just around the corner. This isn't my cleaned up and display stuff or nothing. But there's a Prince Adam right there, original He-Man, and then we've got wearing the wrong clothes that probably my grandmother made or something. We've got a super old G.I. Joe, which let's see here. We have the stamping. Isn't it wonderful? Yeah, this is 1954. Isn't it wonderful that the stamping is on his butt cheek? That's pretty funny to me. But yeah, there's a 1954 G.I. Joe right there, like real vintage. We've got Smurfs. We've got Berenstain Bears. Yeah, mine says Berenstain, but actually mine says 1986 McDonald's, but you know what I mean? That's the whole happy. And what originally got all it started though, there's the light bright box, man. That's an original light bright box. That thing is old as the hills. It still got the sticker on it. It still got the price tag on it. This is pretty neat right here. That sure is that is the price tag. So this is from Brindy's. Suggested retail price of a brand new light bright back in the 80s was $14.95, and Brindy's sale price looks like $11.97. Can you see that? Can we get that there? Can it focus in on it? So there's your marked out original MSRP, $14.95, and there's your $11. And that's why we could have stuff like this back in the day, because we could afford it. If you were to put this out right now, if you were to go to Walmart and buy something like a light bright or a remade light bright or whatever, let your children enjoy light bright. Now I know it's all new and approved and everything, but that things are like $20 and $30. Oh well, $20 and $30. That's the same amount of money back then, and with inflation. Not really. It went further. It really went further. Much, much further. But
now the light bright you've got there, Travis, mm-hmm. I mean, do you still have the puzzles and everything in it that you could make?
It's taped up. I'd have to, yeah. My mom told me that you can still hear the pegs rattling around in it too.
Yeah, but, I can hear that.
the black sheets with the little white dots on them that you stick the pegs through. Mom said whatever I had was in there. So
Cool.
I've never opened it just because I hadn't wanted to cut the tape on it or nothing. But I know I worked. I know I did a lot of light brighting when I was a kid. So
Oh yeah, it was a fun toy, man. You sit there in your room with the lights out, watching your creation as it comes about.
No doubt,
it was great. And then not only I mentioned while you were gone, I mentioned board games and stuff too. We can't.
Yeah,
It wasn't based. They weren't based off TV and movies, but they were some of the most fun toys we had too. Because
absolutely.
Sometimes it was competitive. If you got people playing Sorry, it was always fun to knock people off the board and send them home. Or
that's one of my 9-year-old's favorite game right now.
yeah, the games that was out when I was a kid are out for
Sorry
kids.
and Pop-O-Matic Trouble.
Yes, you hit the little thing in the middle. It pops the dice around in there, and it tells you what you move.
Yeah,
Candyland is still a real game
that
you can play out there.
No doubt. Right behind me here, we got some Trivial Pursuit and some Monopoly and some Clue. Scrabble.
I'll play on the Clue.
On a Clue. I used to love to play some Scrabble.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was tons of them.
Yeah, they call that Words with Friends now.
That's hilarious.
That's what they call it now.
Man, but, we had another one too. That nobody else seems to remember. It was, only a few people like you seem to remember the My Pet Monster. He was the little purple monster in handcuffs. Yeah, and he had a little TV show for a while. And man, I always wanted a My Pet Monster, and I never got one.
Was that My Pet Monster not about the same size as what they called the My Buddy things, like the WWE Buddies? Yeah. First off, two different things. WWE Buddy or WWF Buddies, which was like a pillow-looking version of one of the wrestlers.
Yeah, and they were about yay tall.
But you also had the thing called My Buddy, the My Buddy toy.
I still have a My Buddy at my mother's house, and she got angry at me because when Child's Play came out, I ended up seeing it, and I'm very young when it came out. And I had a buddy doll, and that's what started the whole. That's the My Buddy is what got the Child's Play movie made too. Like it's like, thank God it wasn't. They couldn't rip it off and straight up call it, My Buddy. They had to call it Good Guys or something. And, but when that movie came out, I cut my buddy's hair because it looked, trying to make it stand up and stuff, to make it look more like Chucky.
Yeah.
My mom wasn't too happy with that, but I still got that. That thing's packed up at her house too.
That's hilarious. Tore up your My Buddy.
Glowworms. There was a glowworm cartoon.
Oh yeah, yeah. And you squeeze the worm and it would glow in the middle.
It had a little light in his head. Yep. Glowworms. Sure enough.
I forgot about those now.
I just have when we got me going back now. I'm starting to remember. I'm starting to remember bunches of stuff.
Now these were more toward toys when you were young kids, like 3 and 4 years old. But they were called See and Says.
Oh Lord, yeah.
See and Say was you would take the little pointer thing. First off, you'd be holding this thing in your hands. It's a circle usually.
Yeah.
You take the centerpiece and you turn it to where you want to be on. And if you landed on a pig and you pull the string, it would be like, old MacDonald had a farm, and on his farm he had a pig. Or it would tell you what the pig's name is, and all this stuff.
And there were all kind of CNCs too, because I remember I had a red one, a blue one, and a yellow one. One of them did the old MacDonald on the farm. Another one did like the ABCs, and then another one did. Let's see. The blue one was the farm. The red one was the ABCs, and the yellow one I think the yellow one was something like. Yeah, I cannot remember what the yellow one was, like math or something. I don't remember what the yellow one was. But yeah, we had 3 of those. That was the equivalent of what the books are now, to where you try to read the book and then you push the little button on the side of the book and it'll talk to you. It's like the evolution of the See and Say.
I tell you something that I liked a lot. And I'm gonna consider this in the toy section because they were read-along books before you had audiobooks. Obviously, it was a record. They came with a book.
Oh my God.
Star Wars had a series of these things.
Yes.
And I noticed the other day, Timmy on his page was showing this fold over lid on a box with a fold over lid that stored all these different Star Wars stories on it. So you put that on your record, that on your record player. It might be in a 45 form for a short story,
Most
or
of the time
33
they
albums
were.
for long ones, and it would tell a story.
Yeah.
Star Wars, Star Trek, or
I had
Scooby
one.
Doo. I had quite a few Scooby Doos.
My favorite. Okay, so I had a lot. I had a bunch of the Star Wars. I had Scooby Doo. I had He-Man. I had a bunch of them, but and a lot of them was Disney too. I had a lot of those from Disney as well. But yeah, you'd open it up, and in the inside flap, there was a little sleeve right there where it just tucked up in there. But my favorite one, I had one from the Goonies, and while they were telling the story, it would put in audio clips from the movie. So it was made after the movie. So you'd hear Chunk yelling, and you'll hear all the kids yelling. Or at the beginning they'll cut to the music and the sound from the Fratelli chase, and them going through the daggum town in the beginning. Man, you took me back on that one. I wasn't even thinking about those things. I used to sit around and listen to those and look at the books for hours, dude. Hours.
They were awesome. You could listen. You could just listen to the story, and that was it. Or you could read along in the book.
We had them too. The evolution
Scooby-Doo. I had Scooby Doo. I had Batman and Robin. I had Star Wars, and then there were some Looney Tunes ones. Bugs Bunny and Daffy, or Tasmanian Devil, Porky Pig. Although I didn't like reading the Porky Pig because it'd be like,
right. You did that great. That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
No, it sounded nothing like Porky Pig.
Well, I hope it comes back around at some point during this episode, because that sounded good to me.
It's not.
We had some kind of along those lines. I used to get in trouble on purpose when I was real young in school, because I would get sent to my guidance counselor's office, and my guidance counselor had this box of not CDs, but tapes, and not 8-tracks, like a cassette tape, a regular cassette tape. And on these cassette tapes were all these like scary stories and adventure stories and stuff. So if I got in trouble, I would be able to go in there during the school hours. She was busy, so she would just hand me headphones and let me listen to tapes all day long. So I'd just go in there and listen to all these spooky stories and all this stuff while I was waiting on the bus.
Travis Rollins, is that you again? You're like, Can I get a story? Can I get a story? Can I get a story?
Right? Yeah. Walk in, notice that she just shake her head. I just walk over there and get the headphones.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
She'd be like, just assume the position.
You're right. Like, I'm the only kid in school with a permanent desk in the guidance counselor's office. No, well, young'un must be retarded. We're going to have to give him some LD classes.
That desk is probably still up there with your name carved on it.
A liable to be, sure enough.
Before you know it, the school will be named after you.
Heck yeah.
Man.
It was fun, without a doubt.
What do you think the last toy was as a kid that you bought that was something legit you really wanted?
Do comic books count? Because I never really bought my own toys, man. I bought collectibles, and I bought.
Well, I mean, do those little albums I just mentioned? Do the albums really count as toys? No, but I mean, let's face it. When we were that age, we bought a lot of them.
Yeah,
because they were cool.
I would have to say is, well, I still buy comics and I still buy toys now. But as a kid, I would say the last toy that I bought would probably be a Hot Wheels car. It'd be a Hot Wheels car. It'd be a Micro Machines. And then, for a legit toy, that'd be what it was, for sure.
I think the last actual toy would have been a set I was collecting was probably and younger at that, before I got to the age where I didn't buy toys anymore. At
Right.
that time, because you get to that point, you don't buy toys no more until you reach a certain age again. Then you're like, now you want to buy your old toys you used to have because now you're missing out on
Yeah.
everything.
Do you
So
remember being in your room playing with your toys? Like, what do these people mean they don't play with toys anymore? I'm never gonna stop playing with
dude,
toys.
look. We mentioned LJN wrestlers earlier, right? The WWF rubber
Yeah,
wrestlers. I
right.
had all I had was two.
Mm-hmm.
I had Roddy Piper and the Iron Sheik,
Heck yeah.
and their stances were set up so perfectly that I could pull moves with them. I mean, I was doing RKO out of nowhere before it became known and cool.
Heck
Which,
yeah.
and I was doing the diamond cutter, which is
Heck yeah.
similar.
Right.
Because the way Roddy Piper had his arm like doing this right here, or one side, and
Right.
his other arm just doing this,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
He was perfectly set to get people to take their head, and you lean him forward and hold the other wrestler up like he's doing a suplex and drop him down. He's doing this right here so he could clothesline him.
Mm-hmm.
He take that arm, put the wrestler's face in his arm, and bring him down to a reverse DDT. It looks
Heck
like,
yeah.
or you can take the other arm for Piper that was out like this
Right.
and stick the
Good bulldog.
stick the Sheik's head in him right there,
Yeah.
and pick him up for like a gourd buster, or like
Heck
you
yeah.
said, flip it the other way through his arm. Then bulldog. I would sit there for like hours with just those two wrestlers right there, those two toys, two wrestlers, and I'll have match after match after match of what could have happened.
Heck
Because
yeah.
just like wrestling, mine was scripted,
Yeah. Yeah.
predetermined outcome is what they like to say.
Predetermined outcome. That's right.
And that's what it
Heck
was.
yeah.
So,
That's funny. Heck yeah. So
but
back to your last toy that you ever bought as a
uh,
child.
last toy I had to have bought was a mask vehicle.
All right
That's
on.
that was the last set of stuff I was trying to collect was mask vehicles.
Yeah.
And I want to say it was called the Raven. I think it was the black one where it flipped the top around. I think that's what it was called too. Was the Raven? I'm not sure.
Okay. Heck
But,
yeah.
but this has been, Travis, a really fun episode. We're right at the 58-minute mark.
Yep.
Talking about toys and reminiscing on things like that. I mean, I wish I had all these things with me now just to look at.
Yeah.
I don't think I'll ever get anything nowhere near remotely like what I had before.
Right.
Now you're fairly lucky because your mom knew to keep them.
Yeah, man, I really do. And uh, we said it before, but as we've talked about, we are pre-recorded, and we said in another episode. So we'll do it again because we especially love our mommies. So happy Mother's Day today, and thank you for my
Happy
mother.
Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day, Mama. Thank you for keeping all my stuff. So, but yeah,
I like twins.
I am very fortunate, and I am very happy and lucky because I watched my grandmother throw away what? Oh my God, I watched my grandmother just drive me crazy, man, because she was throwing away vintage vinyl. She threw away so much vinyl, dude. I'm talking about original albums from you name it, from Kiss, John Denver. Not that anybody wants to hear John Denver, but I'm just throwing names out, like anything from the 60s and 70s, man. I watched her throw out like 17 milk crates full of vinyl.
That's a lot.
And, yeah, I mean, no kidding. So it happens. I watched including the aircraft carrier that we just spoke about. I watched a friend of mine that I grew up with. I watched his mother get angry with him one night because he failed his school grade, and she told him she'd do it if he failed. It was his fault, but dang, man, she took his entire G.I. Joe collection outside and threw it in the fire pit.
Ooh.
Burned it in a 55-gallon drum, including that 6-foot long aircraft carrier. This is back in the 80s, so it wasn't worth so much back then. That's still a fortune back then, for proverbially.
That was the highest priced toy there was.
Yeah.
For young boys to want.
Absolutely. We watched it. We stood there and watched it melt. I mean, I was there when she did it. She burnt every single GI Joe. He had a huge collection. So
I couldn't watch that.
So yes, thank you to my mommy for allowing me to still have things like this naked Prince Adam and this 1950s this 1954 GI Joe who I don't understand why his information is inexplicably put on his butt, but whatever. Because he's GI Joe. I went to war and got a tattoo on my.
That's what they all got them.
That's right.
Some of them got a picture of a little boat down there, and they tried to go. Yeah, they tried to go get it removed, and the doctor would see it and laugh, and he's like, "What's so funny, Doc?" And he's like, "Nothing. I've just never seen the love butt that far south before."
Right. I feel
classic line from Three's Company. If anybody ever watched it,
I feel like these clothes aren't original, but at the same time, when you look at them, man, I mean, they got stars and stripes on them.
Well, that's probably legit then.
I don't know. Look, he's even got a scar on his face, man. You haven't been to the bar, son. Can you see the scar?
A little bit, yeah.
I'm trying to turn him into the light, but yeah, he's got a doggone scar on his face and everything. That's probably my oldest toy that's in good shape. My 1954 GI Joe.
That's pretty cool right there, man. Definitely pretty cool.
Heck yeah.
Well, we're gonna go ahead and get to the social media part here. If you want to reach out to us, retrolifeforyou@gmail.com is the email. You get any questions or comments to us, suggestions, send them there. Comes to my computer, comes to my iPad. I'll get all these things and I'll respond to you. The main place you'll recognize us from, though, is going to be Instagram and Facebook. We do have a TikTok where we put some videos up on there. We had one I thought was going to go viral the other day. It hit 10,000 plus views.
Boy.
That's still kind of cool, but it's not viral. But anyway, you can find us on Twitter. If the name gets up straight, you can try looking for Retro Life for You on Twitter and see if it takes you to the right one. There's an older one that got closed out where I deleted it. So hopefully the new one shows up on there now.
So if you want to be social, then you got to go to the social media.
That's right. Social medias.
Social medias.
And then you got YouTube, of course, where we're at right here. We're on Spotify. We're on Google. We're on iTunes. And we're on Stitcher. And Anchor.fm is where you'll find where we host our show. There is usually a question or a poll, one of the two. It's on there. So if you go there, you can participate actually in those right there when you listen to the show. It also gives you the ability to support the show if you want to as well, which is kind of like a Patreon kind of thing, but not Patreon. It's really more like doing bits on Twitch or a tip jar on YouTube. So, you can put on there and you can specify, how much you want to leave. And I think what it's for, like what you're thinking, if you have any thoughts or suggestions. And for people who do end up, supporting us, just keep in mind that's going to go toward the show in some form or fashion. So if there's a person that would want to interview for the show that charges money or something, we would use it to go toward that person wanting to come on the show.
And we appreciate it too. Anybody who decides to be kind enough to support the show and what we do and our antics and my big old. And see, look. Is
big old goofy head going on right now?
It's not a tumor.
Not a tumor. I'm gonna have a tumor before it's over with.
Yeah,
Travis, on top of everything we've said here, toys and all, do you have anything you want to leave us with that's interesting today?
Hey Chris, you know what them black things are that screw on walls?
What?
Flies.